Very good afternoon. So we have Mr. Parinay, Mrs. Chand Ajmera, Mr. Naveen, and Mr. Vedanarayanan. So also request audiences, to put their questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat section. So
Hey Mayur, thanks for the invitation. My name is Vedanarayanan. I head the SMB, small and medium business practice at Razorpay, both sales and marketing. Previously led marketing for multiple e-commerce companies. I also happen to be a marketing mentor working with various early stage startup acceleration programs, multiple Texas Indus entrepreneurs, TIE chapters in India, Atal Innovation Mission, amongst others. Very excited to be here and thank you for the opportunity once again.
same here. Thank you so much. Can we go with Mr. Parinay?
Yeah, hi Mayur.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Yeah, great. So hi, good afternoon everyone on the panel and the attendees. I'm Parinay. I'm co-founder of Shiplight. We're essentially a shipping gateway. We help all business shippers to optimize their logistics operations for deliveries across the globe.
Thank you. Can we go ahead with Mrs. Chand Ajmera?
Yeah. Hey, hi Mayur.
Hi.
I take care of ecosystem partnerships at Shopify India. The most used platform for any business who wants to go online direct to consumer. Before managing partnerships, I was taking care of onboarding enterprise brands, direct to consumer brands on Shopify. So yeah, been with Shopify for last almost 3 years.
Great. Thank you. Pleasure to have you. Can we go with Mr. Naveen now? Hi. Yes, Mr. Naveen, if you could introduce to the audiences, so that'd be great.
For me, sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, that's for you. Yeah.
So Naveen Joshua, I'm the founder director at Green Honchos. Green Honchos is a full stack tech and D2C enabler, working with brands anywhere in their e-commerce roadmap. Would be glad to take up any questions.
Great. So as you all know that from the great success of the first event, which happened on 30th of May, we had a lot of questions which were unanswered. So we have come with this question and answer edition. So we want to answer some of the unanswered questions. So let me begin with the pre-submitted questions. First question to Mr. Parinay. Ms. Tanuja has asked how to plan and prioritize logistics in a post-COVID state with changing red, orange, and green zones. How to encourage customers to pay online versus COD in post-COVID state.
So that's a very relevant question considering the challenging times right now. First of all, we need to I'll answer this in two parts. First, the zone bifurcation, and then the week with COD breakup. So first of all, every product shop owner needs to know if their products are categorized as essentials or non-essentials. So every carrier right now is prioritizing the delivery of essential goods. So if your products are categorized as essential, so it's very simple. If you're in a food category, groceries, or the mask sanitizer category, then you're an essential good. If it's apparel or accessories product, then it's a non-essential good. So prioritized orders. Orders are being prioritized for all essential categories. Then the store owner or the e-commerce store needs to know which pin code is lying in which zone. So right now we have close to 22,000 pin codes serviceable across India, across different carriers, and knowing which pin code is demarcated as which zone, red, orange, or green, plays a pivotal role in getting it delivered in an efficient manner, because there are delays, no doubt about that. So we help all our sellers by providing these demarcations very clearly when their order imports to the panel, or when they are checking serviceability or checking the pricing. So where we simply highlight the pin code related to the color. So if it's a green zone, then we highlight the pin code green, so they know it's in a green zone and can be delivered. Second part, we've seen a very troublesome trend of COD orders still not dipping right now. So when the lockdown restrictions were lifted in the first week, orders started increasing again. There are huge pileups for all couriers, no doubt about that. Now, what happened is first week there were prepaid orders, but then starting the second week, second week of May, around 10th of May, COD orders started piling up. So we always encouraged all store owners to have a marginal discount on prepaid. This I also talked about in the previous session. That have a marginal discount on prepaid shipments when they when the customer wants to pay online, and levy a small COD shipping fee.
I know.
So we've seen a lot of store owners being reluctant about levying this fee, whereas they feel like my orders will drop, right? So it's all, and as my peers in the previous session also mentioned that they just do some calculations that okay, if I have a 15-20% RTO rate, I can absorb that cost. You need to absorb that cost as a business, but also while keeping your return rates low. So let's say we have a average product value of 1,000 rupees and you levy a 10% discount on prepaid orders, so effective value gets 900 rupees. But and additionally you levy a 40 rupees or 50 rupees, basically cover your COD cost. So generally we have seen COD cost ranging from 35 to 50 rupees depending on carriers, including and excluding the GST components. So levy a 35 to 50 rupees COD cost. That essentially brings your product value difference to a 150 rupee. Now that is on a 1,000 rupee product, fair enough hindrance for a buyer, to decide to order prepaid or to order COD.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Veda, the question for you. How are payment gateways becoming more inclusive of all payment options, specifically in relation to wallets and pay later options like cash free? We see Paytm missing from Razorpay for a longer time now. Can payment gateways give us a risk score, just like a credit score, when we decide to go COD for a customer B2C?
That's a great question, and one of our constant endeavors at Razorpay is to make sure that we keep, updating and upgrading our list of payment instruments which we offer, as possible options for our merchants and for their eventual consumers. So some of the things that we have, added to our kitty, especially in light of the current context, current COVID scenario, etc., is what we internally call as the affordability suite of payment solutions, which include elements like cardless EMI, various kinds of EMI options across various kinds of instruments, because we understand that customer inertia might be quite a lot, could be a problem for a lot of merchants, especially for merchants who are trying to sell products which are above a certain price range. Providing an EMI option is a great way for them to get customers on board. That's something that we've always provided, especially in light of the current situation. Subscriptions, again, we continue to invest and double down on that particular product. We believe that subscriptions for any business is a great way for them to build loyalty to their customer base, right? Because you're essentially locking in that particular customer for a certain period of time through recurring revenue streams, and providing merchants and businesses with a ability to be able to receive money in recurring formats from an instrument which they have already captured at one point is something that we've also provided. The other question, which is on providing risk scores, is at Razorpay we've acquired this company called ThirdWatch, and this is a company that we acquired around a year and a half, couple of years back, and we have subsumed it and made it part of our entire payment gateway and our payments offering, which essentially enables e-commerce companies to have an artificial intelligence based risk score specifically for COD returns, for example. That is one of the use cases in which a lot of e-commerce companies can use ThirdWatch. So if there is, say, a particular customer who is looking to purchase an order through a COD mechanism from you, and let's say you are running an e-commerce website, so if you have integrated with ThirdWatch, which is the Razorpay offering, what that would allow you to do is ThirdWatch can actually give you a flag up front, which could be a green, yellow, or a red flag, which says that this particular user is possibly a high risk user for a COD return versus a medium risk user versus a low risk user. So we have a database of lat long and historical COD information that we have, which we use to triangulate and triangulate all of these data points and arrive at this conclusion. So that is another way in which we are trying to solve this thing. Somebody was talking about COD and COD returns earlier, COD volumes being pretty high. This is our own attempt at trying to solve this problem statement for a lot of small or medium businesses in the country.
Sure. Thank you. The next question related to Shopify. Okay. up to when the Shopify 90 days free trial is available?
Okay, so we had announced, just as a part of COVID response, Shopify globally had announced 90-day free trial
Yeah.
in the month of March, but we just ended it on 31st May. So we
Okay.
ran for yeah almost 2.5 months. And it was a global decision taken by our global leadership, and we just ended that on 31st May. So now it's kind of goes back to our normal 14-day free trial that's available to anyone who is signing up from any country.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
But what we have done is that, to help businesses kind of say, just take advantage of going online and save like initial, some amount of money while they are kind of, launching their business online. We have launched our back to business toolkit, which is a very comprehensive guide wherein we have kind of collated, discounts, rebates, concessions from like almost 25 partners ranging from payments, logistics, ERP partners, and plugin partners. That's available on our blog, shopify.in/blog. So anyone can just go there, check. It will lead to like a good amount of saving of almost 80 to 90,000 INR during those initial 3 months. So that's how we are helping businesses in India to kind of reboot or get back to business. Another thing that Shopify has launched as part of COVID response is Shopify email, which is like free of cost to anyone till October 1st, 2020. So any email automation marketing campaigns you want to do, Shopify, if you're running a store on Shopify, you won't be charged any cost till October 1st, 2020. So that's again a part of our COVID response that we kind of announced globally.
Okay. Okay. So which means this 90 days free trial is no more available. That was valid only till May 31st.
Yeah, but then other than that, we have launched multiple other kind of
Right.
comprehensive toolkit and offers from partners as well as from Shopify itself.
Sure. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question, Mr. Naveen. If the marketplace is the better place to showcase a brand, then does it not impact the brand value? As in marketplace, there are plenty of competition which affects a brand value.
Yeah, again, I guess the short list of questions are really interesting ones because it's funneled through. I think this is a question that every brand goes through at some point or the other. For private labels in the past, I think marketplaces have been a huge boon, and it allows products to reach the customer without
Right.
the cost of acquisition for your own D2C. And when brands reach some scale on marketplaces, then they had the firepower to go for their own D2C. So for labels, that had typically been the journey, and you've got quite a few successful D2Cs who are now doing their own branding, doing their own marketing, but all backed by the initial success of the marketplaces and the volume, the value proposition, the product pricing, testing through great channels of marketing. The own D2C, I don't think is an either or an or kind of a situation. I think the own D2C in course of time, sooner rather than later, is a must for a
Yeah.
serious business, because it provides the opportunity for consumers to interact directly with the brand in a kind of exclusive mode where you can market in channel and serve your consumer and gain your following more like a repeat customer purchase or a customer lifetime value kind of a business. So, I don't know whether that answered it completely, but I don't think it is a competition in any way. If you're looking to have innovative marketing and communication strategies, the own D2C channels and your own marketing and your own website is the way to go. If pricing parity and with people using Unicommerce, etc., the stock and the inventory optimization is anyway there. It's not therefore unfair in terms of pricing, where it creates a cannibalization. So marketplaces also works well as a complementary strategy more than anything else.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The next question, Parinay. Okay, how can you help reduce return rate when product display pages and information about product is always a key challenge in e-commerce, especially in fashion product line? Hello. Yeah.
So in fashion and apparel category, we've seen returns uh, majorly due to reasons like first being the shopper was a thrift shopper. They do not need the product anymore. So there comes a speed of shipping that the e-commerce store has to determine if they're using surface or an air mode. So the transit time effectively has a 1 or 2 day difference. Now that solely depends on the margins that you can afford to have, that you have when you mark it up and you're selling, considering your marketing cost, considering your warehousing and inventory cost. Second, when we talk about return rates. So we've seen product packaging, labeling are very important, because a lot of times you would just probably be mentioning shirt, or let's say we are talking about shirts, right? So if you do not use the correct nomenclature of the shirt, so let's say the customer ordered a dotted shirt, dotted or a polka dot shirt, for example. Now, if it's the SKU has only shirt, or we've seen some sellers using SKU codes instead of the product name. So when the shipment arrives, the customer is not really aware on what the product has been ordered, and if I'm receiving the correct product or not. And then what we've seen, the customers, especially for D2C brands, customers are very hesitant if they receive the correct size or not. So labeling the product, so it's a intensive proposition that I'm gonna say talk about, that you need to label your products pre-ordering. So when you have this inventory inside your store, inside your warehouse, you need to probably stack and label them as per your SKU, as per your color variants, as per your size variants, so your dispatch process can always be optimized. So highest RTOs due to color mismatches, size mismatches. Always have a size guide for, especially for apparels and clothing brands. Always have a size and measurement guide for you on every product page, and not just on the website, because that then it helps them determine if they're ordering the correct size or not. RTOs are still bearable, but when it comes to reverse orders, once it's delivered and then they tell you that, and as a brand, you have to fulfill that need.
True.
That I want to send it back, and then you send me another shipment. So you're incurring, in a way, 3 times the logistics cost.
True.
So size measurement guys, measurement charts are very essential there. Labeling is very essential, because if they're not aware if it's the correct product or not, it might get out returned.
Right. Okay, that's always been a challenge for fashion brand then. Yeah.
Fashion brands, adding to that, for fashion brands, weight disputes is also a challenging cost.
Yeah.
I know this is not a related part of the question, but just starting onto it. So we've seen a lot of apparel brands using tamper-proof packaging now, that flyers, which always have, now they'll pack it as close to as the nearest slab possible. So let's say e-commerce generally has a 500-gram slab. So
Okay.
the sellers would try to squeeze it and pack it in a 490-gram slab. But when the shipment actually moves its transit lifeline, the outer packaging is bound to get defaced. Let's be honest. Okay. So if it's a tamper-proof packaging, it's bound to get defaced. There will be some air creeping in, and it will go from 490 grams, 480 grams to 520 grams.
Yeah.
And then the courier sorter machines, which are obviously automated, will measure it in the next lap, and then your weight disputes creep in. They start creeping in. So we always suggest that you have a strong packaging. The small edges creeping out, they tend to increase the weight dispute. So things like that, these need to be taken care of, so you can actually keep your costs under a check.
Right. Thank you for answering this question. Okay, let me move on. So this is for Chan. So there is a limitation of free templates on Shopify as compared to other service providers. It's a bit difficult to take a paid template for a startup as it's too costly. Is there any plan by Shopify to increase the option in free template?
Sure. Yeah. So there like we usually have certain themes which are built by Shopify, which are always free of cost, like, right? So for example, the latest theme that we built was an express theme, which is for any restaurant or any offline business who wants to go online as quick as possible. And if you see that theme has most of the basic features which any business would need when they're just starting up. So they can always use these themes which are being built by Shopify, which are free of cost, and our team constantly kind of keep making changes to those themes in terms of like new design formats, new layouts, which are constantly added to those themes, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is that there are other theme developers who are like based globally, and because the theme cost is just one time, and it takes a lot of effort to build a theme. It also for theme developers, it doesn't make sense to kind of provide themes which are like in the range of say $40 to $50, right? But there's also another option which some of the merchants who are on Shopify use, is that say if they are not happy with the free themes provided by Shopify, or say certain paid themes which are available, they can always pick up a theme from Theme Forest, and which is not as expensive as they will see on the theme store built by global theme developers, and just install that theme on Shopify, on their Shopify store. So there are multiple options. Another option would be it's very easy. If you just want to launch, if you just want to edit like certain parts on your home page or product page of your website, and you are just using a free theme, it's very easy to add those sections on the home page or product page of your website without even making any changes with the help of coding, right? So while there are like options available, if it doesn't cater to like your requirement, you can always either make use of these customizations, plug and play customizations, or you can just download a theme from Theme Forest.
Okay.
Another thing that Shopify is launching is we are launching an editor which will help kind of just make any changes to your like front end layout
Okay.
by just drag and drop. So you just have to use the drag and drop feature, and you'll be able to completely change the look and feel of your front end of the website. So that's something which is announced in our Unite,
Okay.
which happened. So it's also going to come soon. So beta has already started.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me move on. So, Mr. Veda, there is another question from one of your customer, Amrita. She asked, "We have been using Razorpay and are happy with the service. Can you help us with why Razorpay is not working in some countries like Australia? Also, some customers send us screenshots saying their bank has to confirm, and so they are unable to pay. Can you do something so that all are able to pay from around the world?"
That's a good question. That's an ask from a lot of our customers.
Okay.
So traditionally, as a company, we've done a really good job of allowing businesses to be able to receive payments domestically. International payments is something that we are continuing to focus and improve on. We've made
Okay.
significant progress compared to where we were earlier. And when you compare Razorpay to a lot of other payment aggregators which are out there, Razorpay does a significantly better job, but that is something which is a work in progress. It's something that we are continuing to double down and improve upon. I will send across, please do, you already have my work email address, so please do
Yes.
send across my work email ID to Amrita. I would be happy to understand her specific case and help solve it for her. That's something that we are more than happy to focus on. But the other angle that also comes in, which also influences our ability to be able to process international payments, is our own risk rules and checks and balances in place. Wherein, as an organization, one of the things that we are very conscious about is when it comes to international transactions,
Yeah.
the risk models and the risk rules that we apply are slightly more stringent. To make sure that we protect our, and more importantly, the merchants' best interests. So I think these are some considerations that go into the picture. But please do share my work email ID. It's
Sure.
my first name dot last name vedanarayanan.vedantam@razorpay.com.
Yeah.
Amrita, please do write to me separately. I hope that gave you an explanation of some of the reasons why you might in certain cases be seeing declines for your international transactions, but in your specific case, happy to deep dive and help solve this problem with you.
Sure. We'll be sharing your coordinates. All right, great. Okay, next question to Mr. Naveen. How to list a business over e-commerce platform in which margins are very less, 4 to 7%. Any strategy for that business to come up on an e-commerce platform?
So slightly vague the question. If I knew a little more, maybe I could answer specifically, because the 4 to 7%.
Yeah.
Is there a particular category we are talking about? Because the margins all vary basis category, and then we could probably have some inputs or advice about how either discounting or margin waivers or a higher remittance or viability per channel could be used, because every platform has certain methods of having a slightly higher viability. So for example, let's say I'll give a random example.
Sure.
Let's say someone is in footwear and has a lot of open footwear. Post COVID times, I think open footwear has been a top seller.
Absolutely.
When you look at the entire footwear category, especially washable footwear, etc.
Right.
So there are certain price points of footwear that on certain channels, for example, Paytm, etc. I won't take too many names.
Yeah.
That actually do only prepaid for less than 250 rupees or 300 rupees items.
Okay.
So at least it is a guaranteed sale, because once you've got a lot of COD going, the returns is higher, and therefore the net margin realization that you end up happening across platforms because of a higher COD percentage, becomes low in terms of the margins. However, certain platforms are better suited at certain price points for certain categories. So if there's a specific question from someone, please feel free to redirect to me later, and my email ID would be happy to assist someone with their given particular category.
Right. So they have not mentioned which category they belong to, because it's just that margin they mentioned 4 to 7%. Okay. Thanks for sharing your input. So taking one of the example. Okay. Let me move on to another question, to Mr. Parinay. Okay. Aniket has a question. How do you cope up with RTOs due to fake remark and delivery attempts?
Parinay, you're on mute.
Parinay? Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so one of the biggest problems in pre-COVID time and COVID times, fake remarks. So no denying that fake remarks do exist, and for all couriers, that is. Carriers have been, aggressively working, and we as aggregators, we've been aggressively working towards reducing or identifying. First problem is identifying if it's a fake remark.
Yeah.
So a lot of time we receive shipper emails that my customer was at home all day or was at office all day, and the carrier has not delivered or attempted delivery. And a lot of times you observe, so it's a two-way road. It's not that always there are fake remarks. Sometimes your customer is in a meeting in their office, or they're probably. I got a shipment delivered yesterday at 9 a.m. in the morning. I was sleeping.
Okay.
The courier boy called me 5 times. I couldn't answer any of those. Now he could have not delivered. Probably nowadays mailroom deliveries are being generally promoted. So the shipment got delivered, but in a general scenario, the shipment wouldn't be have been delivered because it's a prepaid order. So sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. So wouldn't have been delivered. Now me as a customer, I could easily say that it was a fake remark. So identifying fake remarks, what comes down to is active response on the non-delivery report.
Mm-hmm.
Their exits, honestly, 5 to 7% shipments are incorrect remarks. I'm not sure if it's right to categorize them as fake or not, because some of these FEs are not educated enough to differentiate between a bad address and a consignee not available remark. So there could be a missing house number, or missing apartment name, or a missing street name, and they could they might just put in that the consignee was not available. So errors happen. So what we ask all our sellers to how to effectively counter this is be very active on the non-delivery reports that are being shared by the carrier and by us. So we share a centralized non-delivery report for all carriers, and if you're even working directly with the carrier or any other aggregator or with us, so that you receive a mandatory non-delivery report. take action on that. We've seen RTO rates as high as 25% or 40% just due to no action on the NDR, and reduction of these RTOs to 5-7% just by a simple reattempt remark, just by a simple validation on if the shipment was even attempted, or if your customer was not available, or if they're still willing to take it in case it was actually cancelled.
Okay, which means there are alternate options available. Great.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
yeah, fake remarks do exist.
Absolutely.
Don't
Yeah.
deny that.
No, don't deny that. Right. Absolutely right. Okay.
Just adding to that,
Sure.
all carriers are trying to introduce. So, market is generally moving towards a lot of OTP options.
Yeah.
OTPs for delivery, OTPs for pickup, OTP for cancellations. So there is a general trend amongst the logistics service providers, aggregators, everyone as a whole, joining hands to provide OTPs to the customer. So the logistics delivery rates can be more efficient. The logistics as a whole, as an operation, can be more efficient.
Okay. Great. Thank you. The next question. Okay. For Chan. Yamini asks, for beginners, what kind of store style works the best? Is there an identified pattern there?
Yeah. So usually what I see, most of the beginners who start their stores on Shopify keep it like very simple, wherein they have certain banners and like featured collections and best-selling or say trending products on the homepage, along with like a proper menu navigation, and then the product page has like important elements, right? Images are properly highlighted. If you have any product videos, Shopify supports like by default like product video formats to be uploaded on the product page. Reviews and ratings is very important. So there's a free app, product reviews and ratings, which you can really kind of add it on the product page.
Okay.
And the thing is, make sure that you have like Facebook share, LinkedIn share, Twitter share kind of icons on your product page. And one thing which is really picking up is that there are these free WhatsApp chat options, chat like tool which you can just plug it onto your website.
Okay.
So you just like while you're starting, people will have a lot of queries. They also want to kind of just make sure that they are buying from a trustworthy website. So that plugin also, I have seen most of the people who start really have that. So anyone can just like type on that icon and chat with you over WhatsApp. But keep it as simple as possible, not too cluttered. As I mentioned, just use any of the free themes available on our theme store, and you are really good to go.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question. So, Mr. Naveen, how to maintain the same price across multi-channels? As each channels, different commissions, shipping charges, etc. Customer being smart will compare the price of same product at different channels. A very interesting one.
Right. So are we talking about all online channels or across online, offline?
They mentioned across multi-channels.
So multi would probably be across
Right.
online, offline.
Yeah. How do you maintain the same price?
So, one way is obviously using an OMS. We are on this platform by an OMS. So pushing common pricing across makes most sense. However, I do understand that, let's say the offline distribution channel had a totally different economic in its supply chain, which is very dissimilar to the online. What a lot of them are doing is that new season merchandise, or what they're calling as core range articles, especially since we're talking fashion, because that is where I think this large issue persists. Otherwise, pricing is fairly common in white goods. That's not an issue in the online space largely. But when we talk about fashion, lifestyle, etc., the old season merchandise or discounted is actually discounted everywhere. The new season merchandise is many a times not even given to online or e-commerce, especially not marketplaces. So the D2C, if you have a D2C, then you can still manage your offline and your D2C even with new season. And as you go into your own analytics of top sellers, your Pareto, your discounting by aging or by depth in stock, So then, the best part of online is that the showcase space is not limited. It's
Right.
unlimited. So there's a lot of minus season 2, minus season 3 as well, that you can just keep flocking, because in the online, the other very important thing is the size of the catalog, especially in marketplaces.
Right.
Certain brands go in and say that, okay, if I have t-shirts, let's say, and if give a case of example of Myntra, if there are 10,000 t-shirts on Myntra, so thumb rule is that if you go in with 1,000 t-shirt selection, you'll probably get 5 to 10% of that category
Yeah.
sale on that platform.
Mm.
So, however, in offline, the ranges are always limited. It goes on to high curation, because that's only for that season and will be available on stands that have limited showcase space.
Mm. Mm.
So you would therefore always find a much larger selection and therefore a much larger expanse of discounting in the online. It doesn't necessarily mean that the same articles of the fresh season are on discounted versus non-discounted across channels, because that is a nightmare. So especially real brands cannot afford to do that, because most of their business is based on distribution,
right,
and not on the volume online. So that's how brands are looking to manage this, where the old season merchandise creates that larger width, but actually the buckets of new season is still the same.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Next question, Mr. Veda. Okay. Handling returns, customer refunds is a critical part of smooth customer experience. What safeguards should be put in place from a financial transaction perspective to ensure that refunds are seamlessly, processed?
So that's a very good question, and this is an ask from a lot of our merchants, especially merchants who are relatively more mature, who are mid enterprise and above. And wherein they want to make sure that, because what happens is, in the entire evolutionary journey of a merchant, when they are extremely small, one of the first things, and rightly so, that they care about essentially is monetization, and they want to maximize the revenue, bottom lines, top lines, etc. And as they continue to grow, scale, and mature, and they reach the mid enterprise level, what they also care about, in addition to monetization, is their own customer NPS scores. And in a lot of cases, the customer NPS score is also determined, fortunately or unfortunately enough, basis the kind of experience they have during a refund scenario, right? Because we judge a brand basis how they have treated us when something has gone bad, not necessarily when, during the 99% of times when things are going well. So it's like, I often use the analogy of a cricket wicketkeeper. Right? Keeper is always remembered for that one catch the person drops, and not so much for all of the good work the person does during the entire day. So having said that, at Razorpay, one of the products that we've launched, which has been a big hit with a lot of our merchants, is the instant refund feature, wherein we allow merchants the ability to be able to refund back the money to the customer or from the original instrument from which the payment was actually done, regardless of whether it was a wallet, net banking, debit card, credit card, whatever was the original instruments, instantaneously, as soon as instead of it taking 7 to 13 business days, right, which is the norm as on today, we allow this feature. We've provided this feature to a lot of merchants, and we've seen a lot of insane adoption. So that to me is a great way for you to enhance your customer experience in a refund context.
Great. Okay. Next question to Parinay. Okay. What steps would you recommend to optimize RTOs for the D2C brands?
Okay. So optimizing RTOs, essentially, I've answered the part of this. So I'll start again. Rotates. This fundamentally, it's about when talking about D2C brands specifically, a lot of your RTO, a chunk of your RTO percentage depends on how well the brand is communicating with the customer.
Right.
We've seen a lot of brands not communicating that the shipment has been dispatched or the order has been fulfilled, or if in case there's an exception with an order, in case it's stuck, they're not letting the customer know that they need to expect a delayed delivery. So communication is very important. It's one of the primary aspects when we're talking about brand building. So when you're a D2C brand, you're not looking at a one-time sale, right? You're looking at repeat sales from the same customer, so your acquisition cost as a whole goes down.
Absolutely.
And when we're talking repeat customers, we're talking brand building, we're talking relationship building. And we can only build a relationship by communicating with the customer. So let's say if we've seen a lot of B2C brands have their stores on Shopify. The Shopify has a brilliant feature wherein they fulfill orders and fulfill orders with their Airwaybill number, with the courier Airwaybill number, and an email is automatically triggered to your consignee that the product has been fulfilled and has been dispatched with this carrier with this Airwaybill number. So that is step one. Now also have parallel to emails, because we've seen a lot of people don't check their emails right now. So
Yeah, right.
why now have alternate communication methods like an SMS or probably WhatsApp. There are
What's up?
a plethora of plugins on Shopify apps charging minimal fees or no fees at all, only usage or consumption fees, easily communicating statuses. Then we as logistics partners, we try to communicate about the shipment's delivery status to all to your customers. So regardless of which platform your website on, or how your order was imported or created, if it's a Amazon self-ship order, if it's a Shopify order, if it's a Facebook store order. So we send tracking statuses. Now, if your customer, let's say it's a COD order, because when we talk RTOs, it's generally CODs. So your customer is expecting a delivery in 4 days, and he's not aware that his shipment is bound to be attempted today. He is not prepared with the exact cash amount. He might, and today, today's time, he might not even have that cash amount.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
let's say you order a 2,500 product, a 2,500 rupees product, and you might not have the, everyone is using the alternate online payment tools for everything.
Correct.
Shopping, your utilities payment and everything. No one's willing to go to the ATM. You cannot even step out in some localities to go to the ATM. You don't have cash.
Agree.
And you place an order, COD order. He is not aware that he has to, have the cash ready. So
Yes.
what we generally do is we send out for delivery messages. So, helping the brand communicate to their seller. Then what we've done is we redirect. There's a tracking link in the SMS. Always have. So we always suggest brands to have a tracking page on their website.
Okay.
So even if your customer is not checking email, they can always go to your website and then just track their order. And people are very tech savvy nowadays. If anyone who's shopping online, they know how to track an order. So they'll probably go to your website, track an order. Then obviously what we have is a tracking page wherein the shipper can put in their logo. They can brand it. They can custom brand it basically. They can have the URL customized to their name, to their brand's name. They can have their brand logo. They can have their the customer support details, email. And then also in case of exceptions, delivery exceptions, there's an option to input remarks.
Okay.
So let's say if I being a customer, I'm not available, I go to that page, I can just simply ask for a delivery attempt. Okay, it's need to be attempted tomorrow. This is point one, communication. Then point two is always, focus on having more prepaid orders compared to COD orders. This I really talk about in all sessions, or all my customers I directly interact with. Always try to get more prepaid orders. Probably, have discounts running, subscriptions running, and discounts, subscriptions. Probably if we've seen a lot of those spin wheel ads. Get them some freebies if the cost suffices. If you're a D2C brand, prepaid orders can always be higher. That also revolves around your brand building. If they can locate you everywhere, if you are there on their Instagram, you are there on their Facebook, there's so it's a 360-degree proposition for them. They keep hearing your name, then they're bound to be related to you, and returns get less. So this is something that we try to tell sellers to psychologically condition your customers to accept your order. If they're visible, even if they receive their order, keep retargeting through ads.
Right.
So they keep seeing your brand, and they remember. A lot of times we've seen reasons as while as we forgot that we placed an order for COD shipments, and now who forgets an order? I don't know. Some people do, but that is one concern. Wherein if you're not communicating after 5 days, your customer might have forgotten their place, especially if it's a COD order, because they haven't really paid upfront for it. So communication and order mode, the payment modes.
Very true. I'm sure the payment definitely plays a vital role here to optimize it.
Absolutely.
Very right. Very
just
right.
adding one more point to this is the shipping speeds.
Yeah. Right, shipping speed.
Yeah. So I've seen a chunk of bigger e-commerce companies moving to surface shipping now.
Hmm.
All major marketplaces use surface shipping if it's a free shipping. So have try to get customer paid shipping. Add a small shipping fee. So you pay ship with just have a small option to ship in express. Use air mode. So your charge
Yeah,
is 1 day
yeah,
less. The
yeah.
overall transit time is 1 day less. Uh, have a free shipping mode wherein you clearly communicate that okay, you'll receive it 1 day late.
Yeah.
For this might be untrue from some brands, because then that we've seen for some brands this has resulted in a higher order percentage. So this depends on the customer segment that you're targeting really. So if your customer is if you have a product which is a high value or a mid value product,
Hmm.
then you can easily have a small shipping fee, because
Absolutely.
then your customer is conditioned to receive a product earlier by paying a nominal fee.
Agree. Thank you so much. Uh, okay, let me move on to the next question. Okay, Ms. Chand, there's a question for Shopify. When is Shopify planning to have features like cash on delivery, save and subscribe? Both very critical. It would be also very good to have a PWA option and aspirationally a native app plugin. A lot of your marketplace apps are doing, but there is a lot of gap in terms of technical support, and with the third party there can be a data trust issue. This is one of the question.
Sure. So yeah, a lot of questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Out of one question. So this is one about COD. So when it comes to COD, I think Shopify already has like default manual cash on delivery option which is available, and then we have our
Yeah.
advanced cash on delivery plugin as well, which helps kind of provide certain enhanced features.
Sure.
So cash on delivery is already there. There are few kind of constant iterations which keep on happening to improve our existing features that we provide on our cash on delivery payment option. So that's something that our R&D team, globally as well as in India, is constantly kind of trying to gather feedback from like merchants who are using cash on delivery, not
Yeah.
just in India but in other countries. And we are constantly kind of making changes to our cash on delivery feature, which is available by default on Shopify. In terms of PWA, so again. Whenever Shopify builds any new feature or any new functionality, we always take into consideration that this is being required by say 80% of our total 1 million plus merchant base who are
Okay.
running their stores on Shopify. So say
Okay.
PWA currently is picking up, but at the same time we don't see that each and every merchant out there requires PWA. So then what we try to do is when it's not being required by almost like say 80% of our existing base, we always depend on our partners. So there are a lot of PWA plugins which are available on our app store,
Okay.
quite stable, very effective, and I have seen like few brands using those PWA plugins as well, and not expensive also, like quite cheap. They all of them have like free option available, so you can just use the free version of the plugin, right? But
Yeah.
say 1 year down the line, when we see that the e-commerce trends is the PWA trend is picking up, then Shopify is always kind of ensures that we always build like new features and functionalities to keep up with
Yeah.
those trends. We will definitely look into it. But right now, plugins are available. Same goes with mobile app, right? Like mobile app, I have seen like the brand interactions that I have done. Usually, like a lot of brands reach out to me and ask me when is the right time that I should build a mobile app. I
Hmm.
always give them like like multiple options that you should always first, if your focus is on acquiring new customers right now, it might not make sense to invest in providing a mobile app
Hmm.
website. A lot of merchants on Shopify have seen very great success by just providing like a website. For example, a great example would be of Wow Skin Science, right? It's one of the biggest brands, cosmetic brands in India, doing really well globally. And just like 2 months back, Karan, who's the founder of Wow Skin Science, told me that I have now launched a mobile app, right? So that's the like initial 3 or 4 years, your website is enough, and the mobile responsive website is enough. But after that, once you start seeing like repeat purchase rate increasing, and now you
Hmm.
want to, just like ensure that you want to build loyalty on your website, that's when you would want to kind of, venture into providing a mobile app. But again, it's a huge investment. Also, it's
Yeah.
not possible for Shopify to kind of, build a mobile app, considering that every merchant will have very different requirements when it comes
True.
to building a mobile app, right? So as I also mentioned on the chat window as well, that while again we don't see many requests coming in to build a mobile app, we haven't launched it as a default feature, but our partners, plugin partners are available out there who are kind of, providing mobile app feature. It's a plug and play. But at the same time, you also have to see, like, there's one question which is concern raised that about data and security.
Right.
Every plugin partner who builds a plugin or app on Shopify enters into a partner agreement, with Shopify, which is a data sharing agreement. So, if we see that, there is any kind of say fraud which is happening in terms of data sharing from partner side, their app will be delisted from our app store. So you don't have to worry. We did that for like few partners wherein there were flags raised. Similar applies for any plugin partner who is kind of, playing around with data that's being shared. So be rest assured about that.
Great. Good to hear that from you. Okay. Let me move on to the next question to Mr. Naveen. Okay. The gentleman Vikas, he asked a question. Question is for a business with a high SKU mix, like organic foods. Does the choice of elements like payment gateway, logistics, front end, etc., will differ from other industries, and how?
So I think if I get it right, we're talking about a full multi-category D2C
Right.
versus a single category where you kind of know and you're tying up with one particular logistics and payments. I do think actually Veda and Parinay would actually be much more helpful in answering this question from that perspective. But I do believe that aggregators like Razorpay and Shiplite would anyway handle for those issues as well that are category driven. On the website, obviously, if from a D2C perspective, I can, as well as from a marketing perspective, I can say that yes, the behavior of even your impressions, your clicks, your e-commerce funnel, and your menu categorization is very, very different for each of these sections. And you're talking about quite a vast variety.
Mm-hmm.
So the user experience on the website need to be built accordingly. Veda and Parinay can talk about logistics and payment gateways solutions across categories on the same website.
Sure. So Parinay, any input from your end for this question?
Specifically, yeah. So I think there were a couple of questions in the chat, also in the Q&A section also. We've seen glass products, food category. These are two of the most cumbersome categories when it comes to logistics and transit damages.
Yeah.
So what we packaging. I'll talk about packaging here. Packaging for glass products, for fragile products overall, and for food products definitely differ from your normal e-commerce packaging. Yes, the normal e-commerce packaging can simply be a tamper-proof, wherein you're dispatching the products with a minimum, let's say, only a single or double layer of bubble wrap inside it. But when it comes to food products, we need to be extra secure. We need to at least have always have a corrugated box as an external packaging, at least a 3-ply box, craft paper. We strongly suggest craft paper if you can fit it in the cost. Then there are a lot of solutions available. So when we talk about internal packaging, that's okay. Everyone is well aware of 3-ply boxes, 5-ply boxes, corrugated, or different kinds of corrugated materials available in the market. To improvise the strength of that corrugated 3-ply or 5-ply. But what we miss about is only using a generic bubble. So we've seen a lot of sellers using a generic bubble wrap as a internal packaging. But for glass products, we have sellers we've seen use custom cut thermocast. Instead of your general thermocol or thermocol packaging or a bubble wrap, we've seen them using proper thermocast. So let's say if you have glass jar. So we have a brand, they sell jams. And generally the products are jars, so packed in glass jars. We have seen minimum damage in the past 4 years we've been associated with them because of only one reason: very strict packaging norms these guys follow. For a bulkier order, for a surface order, they always have a custom bottle sized, jar sized thermocast. So there is minimum movement. You need to always eliminate all movement inside the box. So even if you have an external outer packaging, after so when we I'll tell you how logistic companies operate now these
Sure,
days.
sure, sure.
The people on ground, so we can have all set of rules and SOPs, but on ground realities always differ uh, for all carriers. Now when we talk about on ground SOPs, these FEs, they're not very educated, right? They will literally throw around your boxes. We've seen that happening. We've tried to control it, but there's only some extent that we can also, hammer our spokes down. Till. So what we suggest is have a fragile sticker. What they'll really enforce. I'm not saying that having a fragile sticker you will not get any damages, but then at least the FE and the people handling your shipment, because your shipment is being handled by multiple people, at least
Very
20
true.
of them, at
Yeah.
least 20 of them. So they know, okay, there's a fragile product and I do not need to throw it. I
True.
can probably place it in a
Safely.
more gentle manner.
Yeah.
Now, let's even after that, even after them handling it gently or with some caution, the product, if there is any space of or a scope of movement, will move inside the box, which is bound to get damaged. If there are more than one product inside a box, they might collide with each other and get damaged. So probably have secure internal packaging, zero space scope of movement. Use airbags; they come very cheap now. You can have a machine, in your warehouse. If you're having your own warehouse, you can have a machine set up in, I think, a total cost of 2 lakh rupees. The running cost is also low for that.
Okay.
And if you're dealing with the fragile products, please have such equipments and precautions that ensure that these are being taken care of. Airbags, they've seen, have played an important role in minimizing any damages overall.
Okay. Okay.
Regarding payment, I think Veda would be a better person to answer on payments.
So, Mr. Veda, if you can share your input on this.
Would you mind repeating the specific question, Mayur?
Okay, so question was for a business with high SKU mix like organic foods, does the choice of elements like payment gateway, logistics, and front end will differ from other industries?
So that's an interesting question. So multiple considerations come into play whenever a business or a merchant is, looking to choose a payment gateway partner.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things is obviously the breadth of, payment instrument options that particular partner can provide you. The other critical one is, of course, let's leave aside cost. Cost is always a consideration. We obviously, cost is a big play here. And a lot of businesses look to optimize for cost. But some of the other very key considerations is, one is obviously the breadth of payment instruments. The second is the kind of user experience that particular payment instrument can provide to that particular merchant's customers. How native and integrated is that particular experience which the payment gateway can provide to that particular business's customers. Obviously, the customers don't want a very clunky experience wherein the payment gateway page, for example, looks completely different than that particular merchant's website's UX, for example. We don't want that. So that is another consideration. The third consideration, and a very important one, obviously, is success rates. Right. So we want a payment gateway which obviously is at an optimum cost. Obviously provides a breadth of payment instrument options, provides great UX, plus also has very strong success rates. So at Razorpay, for example, we've recently implemented something called as dynamic routing.
Okay.
Where, as soon as we realize that there is a particular, say, acquiring partner where the success rates are, say, possibly a little lower, or possibly we see some downtimes of the particular acquiring partner, we in real time we reroute the transactions to a different acquiring partner in order to maximize success rates, while still optimizing for costs for a lot of our merchants. So these are some considerations that come into play. And especially if you're selling, say, organic products, which is the pointed question, which I'm assuming, and I'm a big organic product fan myself personally.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that does come through is the fact that the ATVs are fairly large. The average transaction values would be slightly on the higher side, because you are in a lot of cases selling to possibly the upper middle class in a lot of cases. Unfortunately enough, organic products aren't the most accessible for the mass majority of our country yet. I wish that becomes a reality sometime in the future. But having said that, one of the things that is essential in order to maximize conversion rates is obviously to provide, given that the ATV, average transaction value, is high, you need to provide a breadth of payment instrument options, plus of course provide options like EMI, for example, to lower the bar for entry. Let's say there is somebody who's never shopped organic before and wants to sample organic or wants to test out organic. How can you lower the bar for entry for such a prospect? Possibly by providing EMI options.
Yes. Very true. Completely agree with you. In fact, there is another interesting question for you, Mr. Veda. So, how do you optimize the business profitability from a payment gateway perspective? So this question is, delivery rates RTO affect the e-commerce business profitability, especially for COD orders. How do we optimize it?
I'm sorry, the question is on COD?
Yeah, especially for the COD orders, how do we optimize the business profitability?
So multiple ways to do it. Purely from a payments perspective, something that I can talk about is what I mentioned earlier. Right? From a COD perspective, we acquired this company called ThirdWatch, which essentially tries to give advance information and lead indicator signals to businesses to know if you even need to offer COD to this particular customer or not. Basis, we have a lot of AI engines in place, and we have we're sitting on mountains of data, which the ThirdWatch platform has been able to collate over a period of time. Using that, we give advanced signals, because quite often, if you've already offered COD to a merchant, the horse is already bolted, so to speak. So the idea is we want to make sure that we give advanced signals to businesses using a ThirdWatch platform, for example, to know for which customers you can and you cannot offer COD. That's number one. The other thing is, given that, let's say you have offered COD, what can you do to mitigate it, and how can you fulfill things really well? So let's say that, and this is something that we've launched recently, wherein we've tried to, especially in light of lockdown and especially in light of COVID, we launched an entire campaign which talks about our contactless payments suite, right? Wherein, especially for e-commerce merchants, when their delivery executives are at the customer's doorstep, delivering the product and looking to receive payments, how can they receive payments without actually any physical contact with the particular customer, which essentially talks about our payment links offering. We launched something called as the electronic point of sale machine, or the app, a couple of months back, which essentially allows the COD executives and traditional businesses to be able to receive payments on the fly, almost like a UPI QR code, except you can generate a payment link on the fly. The advantage this provides over a UPI QR code is that in the UPI QR code, you can only pay through UPI. Through this payment link, you will have the exact same breadth of payment instrument options that would have been available if you are paying through a payment gateway. So the payment link essentially is like a quick and easy payment gateway interface, which you can generate on the fly through an app, through two mouse clicks, and you can share it with your customer for the customer to pay and for you to receive contactless payments. That is another way in which you can optimize for the COD context. So these are two suggestions that Razorpay has made to the ecosystem, and two solutions that Razorpay has provided in this particular context.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering this question. Before we move to the live question answer, let me ask the last two questions from the pre-submitted questions. I've got, Parinay, so there is one question. With prepaid shipping, doesn't the order volume drop? We have 90% COD orders. What is industry average?
It definitely does drop. Totally agreeing to it. Industry, so I'm not sure about the industry averages, but our average COD percentage is a little different from what's the generic trend, because we have a lot of shippers who are they're getting their orders from Amazon self-ship, so the percentage gets skewed. But otherwise, for D2C brands, we've seen COD orders have contributing 60 to 70% of the total order volume. So I do not suggest that you move to 100% prepaid order. But as I mentioned in my earlier answer, that have inhibitors, or probably not inhibitions, incentivize your customers to place prepaid orders. So I'm not saying that the prepaid percentage and COD prepaid breakup has to go from 60-40 or 70-30 to 50-50 or an entire reversal. But we can, slowly look at 10% or a 12% decline. That would majorly also reduce your logistics cost, because then you're not incurring any COD charge on top of that, which is fairly a 35 rupees to 50 rupees charge, which is equivalent. So that's almost your logistics charge for 500 grams. So instead of having a 60-70 30 COD to prepaid ratio, why not look at a 60-40 COD prepaid ratio? Slowly bring down the COD orders, incentivize your customers, and not just prohibit them from placing COD orders.
You're saying 60% prepaid and 40% COD orders?
No, 60% COD and 40% prepaid would be a desirable number, because when you reverse it, then that's not really a realistic number.
Right. Agree. Got it. Thank you. So let me take the last question, Ms. Chand. The gentleman Dinesh asks, is there any particular app in Shopify to improve the fulfillment operations?
Fulfillment operations. So basically, we is it, I don't know what exactly he means, but so Shopify is kind of, most of these plugin partners, like for example, Shiplight, or say even like our omni-channel partner, Unicommerce, or any other like, logistic automation partners are already integrated with Shopify,
Right.
right? So it's just one click integration. So most of these like, logistic automation partners will be taking care of like, order automation, logistics automation, or say automating, fulfillment of orders in bulk, rather than like fulfilling each order one by one, right? Generating manifests, printing tracking slips, everything is automated and happens in bulk. So, we usually rely on like these, logistic automation partners, because they have the expertise, and in turn build integration with not just one or two, but say 50 or say 60 plus logistic partners, not just in India, but globally as well. Whereas if Shopify starts doing it, it will be like, a huge kind of, we then will start, our forte is like providing the best in class e-commerce platform. While these partners' forte is how do I kind of, make available seamless order management, or say order fulfillment operations. So that's why, we have left that like piece, or say that leg of like, overall process to the logistic partners, who are kind of have their own expertise, to automate and improve the order fulfillment. So I don't know exactly, maybe like, if uh, you can elaborate on what is being meant by improving fulfillment operations. I could have given like, more better kind of points to this, but I think,
I think it's a simple generic one. So improve the overall the fulfillment operations from a Shopify point of view with the help of an app.
Yeah, so like all the plugins, right? Shiplight, Shiprocket, Unicommerce also is integrated with all the major courier partners.
Yeah.
So, they have options. Or Unicommerce is also integrated with Shiprocket and Shiplight.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
again, these are the plugins which they can use to kind of, improve their
Very
fulfillment.
Thank you so much for answering this question. Okay, let me now pick up the questions from live Q&A. Okay, there is one question to Parinay. Okay, most of the RTO orders we received comes in a damaged condition. We got a huge loss in that. The way the vendors handling the products is horrible. Is there a procedure you enforce to the vendors on handling of products? You just, I think, mentioned about in one of the organic foods query
Yes.
again.
Yes. Yeah, I think I partially answered that question in the first phase. I'll just add on to how, not how we can control the carriers, but how we can optimize as sellers our operations on the back end when we're receiving RTOs. So I know for a fact Unicommerce has a brilliant feature of marking RTOs using a scanner. So when you scan the airway bill using a barcode scanner, it will automatically generate that. It basically that helps in the RTO reconciliation. The major issue that we've seen is, yes, when your order comes back after 15 days of it, roaming around the country, it's bound to be in a shabby position. Outer packaging is definitely tampered, and not tampered really, not destroyed, but unusable for a second dispatch.
Right.
What we need to ensure is that the internal package, internal product has not been damaged.
Okay.
So let's say if you're an e-commerce store getting 100 orders a day, 150 orders a day, you would be typically getting something around 20 odd shipments in RTO.
Yeah.
Right. So we strongly suggest all our sellers to. I strongly suggest sellers to check there and then when the RTO comes in, and sign on the proof of delivery if any of your shipments are damaged or are in non-usable conditions or have been damaged beyond any repair.
Yeah.
That would help your carrier or your aggregator or Shiplight, as a matter of fact, to help get a claim or reimbursement from the carrier.
Okay.
So in case there is no remark on your POD, on the RTO proof of delivery,
Yeah.
then there's no a plausible cause for the carrier to reimburse your cost.
Right.
So agreeing that it will come in a shabby situation, it will come back in a shabby situation. What we need to ensure is that if it's beyond the point of repair, then we are able to claim back at least your reconstruction cost or your
Okay.
cost as of all. Because let's be honest, when we are shipping a 1500 rupee SKU,
Yeah.
the actual cost is what, 500 or 700 rupees. So
Yeah.
the agenda is to get the cost back, not get a loss on the shipment if we are not earning anything on it.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you so much. The next question, to Mr. Veda. Okay. Are there any charges in Razorpay for UPI transactions? If yes, is there any plan to lower or waive them off?
So we do have a minimal charge that we apply even for UPI transactions, primarily for our technology infrastructure costs. On a case-to-case basis, we do waive off and we reduce pricing, not just for UPI but for other instruments as well. So I don't know the name of the person who raised that specific question, but feel free to write to me, and we can work out a custom pricing proposal for your business.
Sure. Thank you. The next question, okay. Ms. Chand, there's a question for you. As far as I know, we don't have a way to provide customer GST in Shopify checkout page. Will it be supported in future? Is the question.
Sure. So basically, how I have seen, some of the merchants who want to kind of capture customer GST number.
Yeah.
What we do is we have a field. Right now we don't have a default GSTIN field, but we have additional fields on checkout page, which is, for example, here we have company name field, which is part of our checkout page. Usually, in the backend, if you just visit settings checkout, you can just rename that company name field to customer GSTIN field, and then you can use that to to capture GSTIN numbers from any customer who is placing an order. So while there are certain extra fields which you might not need at the checkout page, you can just rename those and replace those with the additional fields that you want to capture. That's one way. Secondly is that, say, if you want to capture company name at the checkout page, usually what our merchants have been doing, instead of capturing it on the checkout page, they usually kind of use cart page. And on the cart page, they just have a custom cart attribute which is added, enter your GSTIN number. So instead of checkout page, cart page, it's very easy to add this custom attribute field on the cart page, which can help you capture GSTIN number. So these two are two options which are currently available for any merchant who wants to capture GSTIN number from the customer who is placing an order. Meanwhile, in terms of localizing the product, as I mentioned that, once we start getting multiple requests from our merchants to capture GSTIN number, we'll definitely add one more field on the checkout page. But even if it's not there, there are still options available through which you can capture number. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you so much for answering all these questions and sharing your inputs. We have come to an end, though we have stretched almost 34 minutes. We thought of finding it at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much. It was pleasure having you all. And we can watch out for more such webinars from Unicommerce.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you all, panelists. Thank you all. Stay home, stay safe.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Yeah. Bye.